So, Jing Yuan came out tonight, and I kind of wanted to do some first impressions with him. Um, as a main DPS character, I'm kind of comparing him directly to Sealy, or I think that's how you pronounce her name. But in terms of being the main damage dealer role, when you're going through the Forgotten Halls and all the hard events, kind of trying to figure out if he's as good as her or better. So as you can probably see, I don't have him completely built out. I kind of just went and threw together what I had in with the resources I had. So if you can see, like, you saw the traces aren't even fully filled out, relics aren't even fully leveled up, and anything. Of course, I have no eidolons for him because I don't have that much money. So I'll have some gameplay on the screen, but basically, he seems to be pretty decent for what I have on him right now. So basically, a quick summary for his character, just in case anyone's kind of new to the game, they saw the new banner, they wanted to give it a shot. Basically, he does a lot of AoE lightning damage, and he summons this thing called the Lightning Lord, which kind of acts like a fifth character in your roster. So he's really useful doing single target and AoE damage, with just kind of how his instances hit and everything. And honestly, I've built him all around that ability, with the Lightning God being the fifth character. So the main thing you do have to realize with him is the Lightning God is considered follow-up attack, so that's kind of how you want to build him. That's why I went the Birth of Self, which gives me extra damage during follow-up attacks and increases that follow-up damage when the enemy is at or below 50% HP. So that's kind of how I've built him so far. I think I'm going to play around with that with a couple days, because what I've seen from the numbers from it, it looks like he can crit in like the 1-2,000 range per attack. So stack that up over 10 attacks, he can do about 20,000 damage, and that's just the Lightning God. That doesn't include his skill, that doesn't include his ultimate attack. Everything is just kind of focused around, okay, if he does 10 attacks per turn, which unfortunately you'll kind of only get that once, because you need his talent to be able to, or not his talent, his technique to be able to get that. But most turns you'll be able to get around 8 or 9 attacks if you kind of play everything right. Now, one thing I did notice is you need to be careful in terms of building up the stacks of his whatever it's called, his Lightning Lord's actions. What I've noticed in playing with him for the past like hour or so is, with the Lightning Lord, when he gains his actions by performing your skill, your ultimate, his speed increases. So what had happened to me once or twice is I used his ultimate, and then the Lightning Lord went in front of Jing Yuan, so instead of getting 8 attacks, I only got 6 attacks. So when you play with him, you gotta kind of keep that in mind, and that's really where your strategy is focused around, is maximizing the Lightning Lord's attacks every turn when he loops around. But basically, kind of what I've understood is he's very good at immediately wiping the board. If you go into an area and there's one main boss and 4 adds, he can basically clear the thing instantly. It's when we get to the single target damage, then he starts to lack a lot of damage in that category and relies very, very heavily on the Lightning God's actions. But he can still put out some decent damage, and I honestly think if the enemy is weak to lightning, he can put out a significant amount of damage. Now, for his teams, seems like you can kind of build them the same way as every character. He's the main damage dealer. You have either 1 support or 2 supports, a shield, and a healer. He's kind of the basic build. He doesn't need anything special. In terms of relics, you're going to want to look for lightning damage, and you're going to want to look for crit damage. Now, in my opinion, I find crit damage, or I at least think crit damage is going to end up better on him, just because of how many instances of attacks he does. He does an AoE that hits everyone with his ultimate and his skill, and his Lightning Lord can apply up to 10 attacks a turn. So I feel like since you have so many instances of attacking, you want a higher crit damage versus a crit rate. And of course, his main damage dealing type is lightning damage, so you're gonna have to make sure you get the sphere that gives him lightning damage boost. Overall, I think if you think he's a cool character, which I think he does, because he adds a unique concept of he adds a 5th character into the rotation. He has a cool kind of like Chinese lion vibe, and he gets to summon a fucking god every once in a while. So I honestly think he's a solid lightning carry, especially if you don't have any 5 stars, especially like a 5-star carry like Seal or whatever. I definitely think he's worth summoning on. I do think the community needs to spend some time to kind of figure out, should you focus around the lightning god damage and just maximize his instances, which would go with kind of playing with the speed a lot of times, because like I said, you kind of want to balance him so every time the lightning god comes around you get the maximum amount of action. So does the community really want to build him around follow-up attacks, or do they kind of want to rely more on his ultimate and skill to deal the majority of damage? But that's my first impression on him. I'll probably release something else in a couple days with more solidified detail on what I think he's good at, and is he better than some other 5-star carries and hyper carries that are also out. Okay, see you boys later.